until second semester. There's this mode in your calculator called polar mode, and you can basically graph like daisies and roses and weird little snails and all kinds of stuff, and it's really helpful to have this circle show where you are. But anyway, we're not doing snails and flowers today.
Can we get extra credit if we figure out how to download a game on a calculator?
Whoa!
I don't know if it's extra credit worthy. It'll distract you from your homework, but it is cool if you do that. All right, let's stop playing with our calculators. Back to the common errors real fast. Hey guys, this one's actually super important because there are multiple times a year that I have to change something for you, and it was one of these mistakes. So real fast, do we know the difference between the minus and the negative?
Yeah.
Which one's bigger, longer? The minus is longer. So if anything ever doesn't work, go make sure that your minuses are truly minuses and your negatives are truly negatives. But there's another one that's really important, and it's this one right here. Having plot 1, 2, 3, or 4, or I don't know, I think it's just 1, 2, or 3 on. You are going to be using these plots. It's called stat plots. You're going to be getting to them by doing second y equals once. Oh, let me get out of this. Let's just do okay. There we go. For the second part of your homework, for the yellow worksheet, you're going to be doing stat plots. This is how you get your little scatter plots. You're going to be using Zoom stat, which uses like, hey, I'll look at your lists and figure out what to do. But there is a shortcut to turning on those plots, and it's not by going here. It's right here in the y equals, and it's just chilling right above. There are so many times that these accidentally get turned on. I don't know why, it just happens.
How do you do it?
I just hit enter, and it selected it. If one of these is ever turned on, and you're trying to graph just like normal with y equals whatever, check out what happens. Why'd it freak out? Read it. But yours might not be quite as detailed. The long story short is that my plot was turned on. It went looking for data that, frankly, always hit quit to get out or go to. It went looking for data and said, you don't have valid x's and y's. I can't graph it. But I wasn't even trying to graph it. It was just accidentally turned on. So if those are ever selected and you're not doing tables of data, get it off. Get it unselected, and then you can graph like normal. Yeah? There's another weird thing that can happen, and it's actually not in this handbook. There are times when, you guys know when you type in 2 equations, and if you're trying to do like an intersection or something crazy like that, don't you want both of them selected at the same time sometimes, like for intersections? There is something like, and I don't know, no, I don't. I don't know how it actually gets turned on, but there is something in your guys' apps menu, this one right here, that sometimes gets turned on. And when it gets turned on, you cannot select more than one at a time, and you have these weird little like arrow things that show up. And it also happens, I think, when you do the inequals one, because some of you guys like the inequals app, because then you can do greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, and you kind of like cheat with the whole inequality thing. If some apps get turned on, you can't do more than one of these, and if that's true, then it kind of messes you up for some problems that you need to do. Most people just ask me when that time comes, but there's something called, it's not on mine. It's on yours, but it's one of these that some of your calculators have an app that got turned on that needs to get turned off. So if you ever get to the point where you can't select more than one, just ask me. I can turn it off real fast and show you what it is. Some of you it won't apply to, and some of you it will. But these are all things that happen a lot during the year, and it's super annoying if you're like, my calculator's not working, especially if it's on a test. It slows you down. So anyway, keep a close eye on that. But we're trying to grade our objectives. Here we go. Objective number 2. What'd you guys notice? Oh man, I didn't fill in the answer, or I did. There was nothing there. Because Zoom standard is a 10 by 10. You had to zoom out. So sometimes you're going to graph, and if the window's not appropriate, you won't even see unless you start playing with the zoom. That was the point on that one. This one, yes, there was an answer to what would have given you this perfect graph with the scale being weird. The long story short is if you didn't see this and you just started zooming out, this graph would get horribly like distorted. Because if you notice, the x range is very small and the y range is huge. So zooming out would not have been a valid method. Instead, they wanted you to try to manually manipulate the window to find this thing, which means going to window and actually playing with all those options that hopefully you guys struggled with a bit last night. In the sense of X-min is talking about how far, I think we have another objective to help us out with this. Nathaniel, what's up, bud?
But it gave us the window.
Well, only if you kept looking. It technically gave you a function and said, can you find the window? So only if you kept looking would you find it. The point was, you might sometimes have a weird equation, and if this is never given to you. I'll just give you a hint. This is never given to you, like in real life, in your book or in problems. And so the dilemma is, could you have gotten to a valid graph to find the max or find the min, or would you have given up? Because this is a really weird window. So that was the point, is to, would you know how to get there on your own? X scale. Let's go to this one. This is objective number 4. Because I kind of labeled what all this stuff means. So if you guys figure out that X min is the how left. Ooh, I need this down a little bit. I'll just show it this one. With inequalities. The X min ends up giving you how low does the X go or how left does the X go. X max shows you how high the X goes, like when you're doing a graph. Y min, Y max shows you, once again, how low, how high the Y's go. We've already done interval notation, so this isn't super crazy as far as you guys kind of know what this little e is already. But the other question that was asked is, what do we do with these guys? These are the scales. Did you guys figure out what the scales are? What are the scales? Yeah, what the units are, like what the actual tick marks are on the axis. So the last one that we did, objective number 3, there was like 500 Y's fit in there, but only 5 lines. So the scale was, hey, every 100 put a line, every 100 put a line. So it's just a way the scale is talking about basically how spaced out the tick marks are on your axes. That's what's going on there. So for this one, it's like, hey, I would like some tick marks, but I know this is way below the 1 that it usually goes by. So let's go by 0.001 instead. So you can see like 5 tick marks to get there and 5 tick marks to get there. What was it talking about? I said 3 different window settings. What was the 3 again? Standard, zoom standard. And then fit. Yeah, when you did zoom standard and zoom fit, did you see maximums or minimums?
No.
No, but in the last one, did you see a max and a min?
Yes.
So what's the most appropriate setting? Yeah, but this y, negative 0.05 to 0.05, how would you have known to do that? Check out your values. What are these coefficients? Tiny. So we would need to go by tiny increments to actually see if there is any change. Anyway, we're showing you really weird functions in order to kind of try to help out. These ones, if you guys are checking, we're grading our objectives. We're on number 5 right now. What was the value for 0.9? It should have been negative 0.0008 or negative 8e negative 4. Or negative 8. Scientific notation. Negative 8 times 10 to the negative 4. I think there was a typo in the actual handbook. But what's the value for number 5? Sorry, I just wanted to show you your attention to the typo. It's not negative 8 times 10 to the 4. It's negative 8 times 10 to the negative 4. What did you guys get for number 5 though? What was f of 0.9?
0.0066.
Yeah.
Negative 0.
It was a negative?
Yeah.
There wasn't a 1 in there somewhere? Okay. Sorry, so there's a typo in the handbook, and then there we go. We have our decimal for the value at 0.9. What's the next objective? Here we go. Number 6, we talked about crossing out the value because that was objective number 7, so you didn't have to find a value. Objective number 7 had you find lots of values. But you guys get the appropriate 3 zeros? And the min, the x, the y, the max, the x, the y. How do I know this is an x, y, and not an interval? It's such an easy question, it's hard. How did I know this was an x, y? Context. Yeah, minimum is just a point. Context. The maximum is just a point. So it's just an order pair. Couple more seconds, but you guys should have probably had that right. Okay, number 7, evaluating the y values. at 4, at 2.1, and at negative 0.5. At 4, at 2.1, at negative 0.5.
When you put answers, how long? Like to what place?
Oh, 3 decimal places.
3 decimal.
So tens, hundreds, thousands. 3 decimal places.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, GC's got it.
Hey, do we know worship night? I know I had a date, but they...
Ooh, this is the one where you guys had to do the intersections, right? To find the 3 points of intersection. Now, I just did the first one because if you find the first one precisely, and your rounding isn't off, you should be good for the other 2. Because all you need to change for the other 2 is the guess, right? You move your guess a little bit further, and you move your guess a little bit further beyond that. Now, a lot of you with intersection are probably used to the first curve, second curve, enter. That's great as long as you don't have 3 or 4 or 5 in there. Because otherwise you're going to get messed up, yeah? So you have to make sure you have, now there were only 2 probably in most of your calculators. It was fine, enter. Just be careful. But the guess, you have to move that guess to the one that you want to find the others. But if your rounding is a little bit off, now I always go to thousands, so maybe you rounded to like hundreds or tenths instead. On the quiz, I'm going to want thousands, 3 decimal places. It's because of an AP calculus thing on their exam. They have to go to thousands always. The book sometimes only goes to 2 decimal places. We're not doing safe things. But if your numbers are off, if your values are off, you didn't use the operation in any of these, the maxes, the mins, the zeros, if your decimals are off, you are off. And it would be wrong on a quiz, so make sure you come ask me being like, I don't know what went wrong. Any more objectives, or was that it? That was it, because then we get into lists, and then we get into pages 7 to the end, and then the other worksheet. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and grade the blue. Let's go ahead and grade the blue. Here we go. Calculator worksheet number 1. Let me throw it up here underneath the document cam. You guys can grade your own, kind of like we grade our own homework, but as you do, I'm going to kind of meander around the room real fast and see what you're marking wrong, because if you're off on decimals, we're in trouble for the quiz. So go ahead, color pen. Be grading. Emma, if you want, just do it at the
Oh, thank you.
Are decimals matching up?
Yeah, it's really cool.
The decimals are on, write it down.
I just wrote for B on 1, I just wrote 15. I have to write the decimal.
If we write like too many decimal points, is that?
I won't mark off if you do more than I do. Just don't do fewer. Like what Kimi just said, she just did the whole number, but the problem is I don't know whether you were precise or whether you just kind of guessed it and went for it. So yeah, you give me some decimals. I asked for 3.
Well, 3.
I'd probably be fine with 2. The book and the message.
Yeah, I rounded for all of them.
But that's okay. Like, I'm not taking points off on this. I'm letting you guys see if this was a quiz, I would be marking things off. Does that make sense?
It's like 6 decimal points.
Same.
6, 7 decimal points.
Now hold on. That's nice, Nathan, right? Really great. If there are things that are off, what is your goal tonight and tomorrow night? Figure out what went wrong. It could just be that, like, it said guess, and you moved the cursor and said, yay, I found it, and you wrote it down, but you never hit enter for the calculator to get exactly where it needed to go. A lot of people do that when it says guess. It's like they use their cursor to go there, and they don't actually have the calculator do it. So that's where the decimals are off. If the actual numbers are off, there could be something like 3A, where there's more than one answer. Maybe you just did one or the other. Maybe you inputted this wrong to your calculator. That's always a possibility. Maybe you forgot a decimal, or you put like an extra decimal place, or you didn't type the whole thing out. So you need to go back and revisit it and see if you can make the answers match. Does that make sense? Okay. On Friday, remember, we're turning in, well, maybe I haven't told you, we're turning everything in. You're turning in your handbook and your 2 worksheets. So I'm just going to be like, okay, did they attempt it, grade it, figure out what was wrong? But if you're not able to find what's wrong, please come see me. Either when we're working, like we will be doing for a little bit, you can reach out and be like, hey, can you just come look at my calculator? Or you can come in during lunch, I'm usually, or after school, or grade 7 and be like, oh, but try to find it yourself first. But you're going to want it as attentive as possible. But it doesn't have to be hard. Or post the answers when you ask them to guys. Nothing's due done tomorrow, but so for those of you guys that are asking about what's due tomorrow, what do I technically have on the backboard as due tomorrow? The handbook. You should have worked your way through the entire handbook because then you will know, or at least have read and done the objectives for the yellow worksheet. There are a couple extra things at the end having to do with piecewise functions, which are a little bit funny. But I'm not saying handbook and the yellow worksheet, that's too much, but if you are wise, you will start the yellow worksheet as soon as possible and ask me questions as you go. So if you guys don't, can I just throw up the yellow worksheet and work through number 1 again? If you've already done it, totally fine. And if we're working through number 1, do you know we're actually working through number 1 and 2? So if I were you, now you could totally be ignoring me right now and working on your handbook or working on the back of the yellow worksheet. That's totally fine. It's your objective, your prerogative. But if I were you, let's just make sure we have this yellow worksheet kind of figured out. Because it is a beast, and yes, some of you need to go back to the blue and figure out what went wrong. But I think it might be more helpful if we all do this one. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and get my calculator up. I'm going to throw in my list of data using 0, 5, 10, 15, etc. that you guys already read off to me. I think I already have it in. I'm getting rid of whatever funniness is in here. Okay, so we're in our list 1, list 2. Some of you have already put it in. Some of you are really wishing that you had a keyboard right now because life would be a lot nicer. Except my keyboard's not typing. There we go. Where are we at? Oh, wow, there's a lag. Oh, that's sad. So I can't type as fast as I want to type. Oh, that didn't work. Now, guys, why would this not work right now if I tried it?
Because you have an extra thing.
Yeah, so just make sure all of your X's and Y's measure up, and please, before you start going for it, please make sure everything is typed right, or else you're going to get all these answers and they're all going to be wrong and life is going to be sad. What do we have? 15, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Good. And I have 81, 21. You know, there are people whose jobs are just basically crunching numbers. In some ways, it's kind of fun. Okay, you got it, Ellen. What's up? Oh, check out the parenthesis for 1980. Use X or T equals 0. 1985, T equals 5. So I'm going 0 years from 1980, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 18 years to get to 1990, 19 years. You guys got the table okay? Yes. John, did you find all the homework spiral people? Yeah. You're my hero. Thank you. Okay, so now, wait a minute. Number 1, there's like a y equals blank. Find the linear regression. Has anybody looked in their handbook and figured out how to find a linear regression? What do we do? Stat. Go to the right. Calc. This is a great menu. Stat and then over. Kind of like second trace, the calc menu for graphing was up here and had all kinds of stuff. Stat, calc has lots of stuff too. Linear regression is number 4. Linear regression is number 4. Now, we could change this, but I totally put my X's in L1 and my Y's in L2, so it's actually totally fine. For a lot of you with the newer calculators, just keep hitting enter and go. Some of you with older calculators, it might just do it for you without asking you any of that information. But what does this tell me? What should you be writing down in your worksheet right now? Y equals 4.356x plus 83.344, right?
Yeah.
Invalid dimension means that your x table or list was longer than y or vice versa. Coming back. So don't write y equals ax plus b. That's annoying. Write y equals 4.356. What does this mean? And then b plus, 83.344. Now, once you have your equation, do you guys see in number 2, it says using the linear regression you calculated? Okay, so if you're using the linear regression that you calculated, we can't use it unless we put it in our calculator. So can't we take this guy and can't we go put him in y equals? Now, I wish we could like stow it and throw him over there. It'd be really cool. But instead, you're going to have him written down. Then you're going to go ahead and put in the 4.356 x plus 83.344. If you take this equation, now you have to type it by hand, but if you take this equation and throw it in your y equals, now you can start playing with it and using it. Like for instance, in number 2, what does it ask me to use it to do? What will be the population in the year 2011? How can I use this to find that? Hold on, we have to think about variables. If the year is 2011, is that an x or a y? X. Okay, so when we're looking at this, we have our equation. Let's go ahead and write it. That's all right. What was it? 4.356. That's a bummer. 4.356 x plus 83. Okay, what I would do or if I were you, I would look at this year, 2011, and be like, okay, who is that? X or Y? X, technically T. But we're not going to throw in 2011 to my equation. Technically, we're going to throw in, why am I going to put 31? Yeah, because remember 1980 is year 0, so 31, this is 31 years later. Now, technically, if we're talking about T's, maybe I should have made this a T up here instead of an X if I want to be super snazzy and actually have my math make sense. But could we, by hand, actually plug 31 in? Sure, but could we use the calculator to make sure we don't make mistakes? Also, sure. Now, some of you would come, sorry, Nikki, do you have a question, kid?
Oh, yeah. It's still working. I have the same amount of...
And your plot? Oh, that's weird. Guys, you could type this whole equation all over again and do like a 4.356 and then parentheses. But do you know there's a really cool hidden menu in your calculator if you hit alpha, y equals? For newer calculators, older ones, I'm so sorry, you're going to have to do it in old-fashioned way. I can show you that too. But newer calculators, anything with a light-up screen or with a, yellow button one. But there is a really cool hidden function, and that hidden function has an option, if you guys go over, actually has a lot of options, like how to write fractions in really spiffy ways, how to do actually really cool stuff here, absolute value in a really fast way. But also down here, there's y bars. We threw this equation into y1, right? I threw it into y1 up here. Mm-hmm. You know that your calculator knows function notation f, but not 311, it's 31.
How you get y? Why won't mine move? Whoa. Mine won't move left or right.
Oh, if yours doesn't move left or right, you can just go straight to alpha trace, or you can go alpha y equals and then go over. Oh, I just went to my graph. Alpha y equals, then hit this button to go over. You can like hit the buttons right below.
Okay.
That's good.
Ah, I did it.
Wait, what do we do?
Oh, we're plugging in 31, so this is just like f of x, f of 31, so I'm using the cool feature to do what number 1 did.
Wait, so basically this is like the action,
Oh.
this is like plugging X and so Y.
Yeah, there are 31.
Well, I did it.
So, you have to plug in.
Oh.
Did you get it? Yeah.
Now, could you guys have done that on the graph? Why did I do this from the home screen instead of going to the graph and using the, isn't there a spiffy like second trace value thing? Why? Just put in 31. It's no big deal. 31. Wait, is 31 on the screen right now?
No.
Wouldn't you have to zoom out, zoom out, zoom out to get a nice picture to actually use this?
Yeah.
I don't want to zoom out, zoom out, zoom out to get a nice picture. I'm like, forget it. I just want to plug in 31 and I want to be lazy and have the calculator do it for me. Dun, 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 done. Now, wait. What does this mean in context of the problem? Are you supposed to put 218.38?
No.
No. Because the population is not 218.38 of a person. Did you read the label? Thousands. Now you could do 218.38 if you want to be really lazy. Thousands of people. You could do that. You could write the word thousands. Or you could actually just move the decimal place 1, 2, 3. And then you could have the actual population, which would be 218,380. Either one. That one's okay. Or the thousands with the decimal place. Now wait a minute. How about letter B when it says, when will the population reach 250,000?
Then you have to plug in the Y.
I actually have to solve it by hand? Well, that's annoying. Now wait. Why am I only doing 250 instead of 250,000?
It's not by the thousands.
Because the whole function is built on thousands. And I could set it equal to my function, the 4.356. Is this one easy to solve? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, by hand, no big deal. Subtract and divide. Do you guys realize down here there's something called a cubic regression?
Yeah, I do see that.
A cubic regression is going to be way harder to set equal to something and solve because you would have to factor. So can I show you another way of solving this with your calculator and not by hand? Okay. Couldn't we technically go to our y equals? Now, didn't we just say it's really annoying to have to go find something far away by zooming?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I should put the 250 here. Because that's what I want to set this y equal to. And do you guys realize that in this equation, couldn't I technically move the 250 over to get a 0? And I would do that because it'd be a lot easier for me to go find when y equals 0, because it's a 0 of a function on the x-axis, than when y equals 250. Because I'd have to change my window to go get 250, and I just don't feel like it. So instead, maybe it'd be a lot nicer for me just to say, let's just take this y1 and let's just, oh wait, we just learned how to find him the shortcut way. Haha. I'm just going to subtract 250 and then I'm going to go looking for zeros. But I realize the x's might go into like, I don't know, 100 years later. Couldn't we figure out where the 0 is? Ah! The 0. Now we're going to talk about questions that you guys have on the worksheet. Check out the blue. Try to figure out what Precalc. And let's see the questions, or come to me with questions if you have them. If we're on the work day or review day, so figure out what we don't understand. Sound good? Alright, ready? Here's pants. Hold on. Can I show you real quick? Do I have any batteries in my old ones? Oh yeah, I do. Batteries time. Let me use this. Okay, check it. Alright. You just can't do the nifty. Go find it. But there's a box button. And there's bars. And you're in function mode. They're there. Just have to go. Does that make sense? Let's do bars. Working to bars. And working to this one. Is that fun? Sorry, you can find it. It's the long way. Google Classroom?
Yeah, I still need to send in the. I'll give you full credit. Just when you do it, post a comment. Have you figured out a way? I think. Well, I tried doing it again through the issue, but I don't think that worked. What was it? I don't really know. But I'm gonna do the. I'm just taking a picture and putting it on my phone. Do you have the app, the classroom app? The Google Classroom? No. I can get it. Yeah. I can get it and then I'll try to. If you